This week, once boastful Republican Senate candidates and their strategists have more reasons to be concerned about their chances of taking back control of the U.S. Senate. On top of what continues to be very bad polling among some of their, from the right's, must-win nominees, and even Senate Leader Mitch McConnell lowering expectations very publicly on the prospect of victory. There's now this. A cash crunch. Republican Senate campaigns now have less than half the cash on hand that Democrat campaigns have. Washington Post reports of campaign advisors panicking, demanding an audit of the National Republican Senatorial Committee after it canceled TV ads booked for about $10 million in the key states of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona. A National Republican consultant working on Senate races tells the Post this, quote, "If they were a corporation, the CEO would be fired and investigated. The way this money has been burned, there needs to be an audit or investigation because we're not going to take the Senate now. And this money has been squandered. It's a ripoff." Joining us now, Tim Miller, writer-at-large for The Bulwark, author of the book Why We Did It, a travelogue from the Republican road to hell, plus former Obama White House press secretary Robert Gibbs is here. Claire McCaskill still with us. So maybe Robert Gibbs, maybe it's the money, right? Maybe somebody bought themselves a tanning bed or something. Or maybe it's nominating Blake Masters, Dr. Oz, Marco Rubio, Herschel Walker, and Ron Johnson and J.D. I think women in violent marriages should enjoy them for the kids' sake. Vance. I don't know.
Yeah, Nicole, I mean, in the end, candidate quality, which is exactly what Mitch McConnell bemoaned, is what's ultimately going to decide a lot of these races. And as you've seen and as you've talked about in this article demonstrates, these are candidates that aren't performing well on the stump. By and large, some of them are dodging debates. They're not raising money like they should be. And that money is not going to the ads that should be communicating their message. Campaign committees and super PACs can certainly help, but the lowest unit cost for an ad is through a campaign committee. And if these candidates aren't doing what they need to do, you're essentially paying a lot more money to communicate with voters than you otherwise would. And I think Democrats in a lot of these races, Raphael Warnock, we've seen Ryan in Ohio. A lot of these places are running really, really smart, good campaigns. In any race that Democrats can make competitive gives a chance for Democrats to hold the Senate.
Robert Gibbs, how much has the Republican Party aligning itself with the insurrectionist and the insurrection changed the landscape in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would on and around January 6th?
Yeah, I think, and you see this in the new NBC News poll, that democracy has crept up to be the top concern among voters in polls. And I think while some thought this was a bit of an esoteric issue and wouldn't move voters, I certainly was among some of them, particularly when inflation was a much higher issue. It still remains salient. But I think as you've seen more and more campaigns in Arizona, gubernatorial races in Michigan, congressional races in Wyoming, the airwaves and the news waves have really been flooded with examples of people denying elections. This isn't something that, quite frankly, feels removed anymore because candidate after candidate, nominee after nominee is going through the process and proclaiming that the race for president in 2020 was stolen. And so all of a sudden, it's become more real because those candidates are giving it voice. And even as they seek to talk about issues that voters are, quote unquote, concerned about, talking about races that were stolen 2 years ago when no one's come up with any evidence undermines the whole idea that they're talking about issues that are of utmost concern.
I think it is a fascinating sort of, if elections are a kaleidoscope and the reason that folks like Robert and Tim are sought after by candidates is because you never know what events are going to shape the mood of a voter on election day. But I think that what the plot twist that no one could have seen coming is that Republicans wouldn't side with democracy. The reason democracy is the number one issue is because one of the two parties has refused to stand up for it and protect it or even pretend to do so. How much do you think candidates like Doug Mastriano and what's her name, Lake in Arizona are hurting the national Republican brand, Tim?
Oh, they're hurting it quite a bit. And I think Robert makes a great point about how this money needs to come in through candidate committees, and they're not particularly very strong. I think Carrie Lake actually probably is raising a good amount of money herself because she's so insane. She's using the Trump playbook. But if the Republican fundraising apparatus was always two-pronged, right? One, it was grassroots, bottom up, and two, it was from corporate and wealthier kind of country club donors. And they're not opening their checkbooks for these kinds of insane candidates. And guess what's happening with the grassroots money? The NRSC can hire me to run their audit committee. I can tell them where their money is. It's down in Mar-a-Lago. Trump's raised tens of millions of dollars this cycle with his fake, his attacks on the FBI, his fake arguments about the 2020 election, all of his complaints. Any of us who are on vestigial, like Republican campaign lists, get all the emails and texts from Donald Trump. He's hoarding all that money. He's not using it to help Blake Masters in Arizona or to help Dr. Oz. All he wanted to do was punish the people that wouldn't go along with his lie. He's not doing anything to help the people that have gone along with his lie. And so the Republicans are dealing with this, where you have the extreme candidates that can't raise any establishment corporate money, and the grassroots money is being sucked down into Mar-a-Lago, and now they're wondering, well, where's all the money?